Ladies and gentlemen, all around the world from three different continents, thank you very much for joining us. The Roundtable is our second platform for Call of Culture to develop and advance cultural dialogue among people. We have launched recently in Perm in Russia in the International Day of Volunteering last November. And today the Roundtable is about Women Steps, which is a moderate discussion about women leadership in the community. And we need to discuss and bring diverse leaders from different private, public, and perhaps the third sector to tell us what they have done so far. And we need to learn more about the steps, the secret sauce, I would say, how you have made it to where you are right now. So I have a colleague of mine, Eric McGriff. He's joining us from New York. I will step off and he will be joining and moderating the discussion. I'll be, of course, watching you and asking questions if necessary. Good luck, and I wish you a great
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi.
Good. How are you?
I'm doing well, thanks. My name is Eric McGriff. I am from New York, and I am a senior at my university. I have three majors or studies. They are political philosophy, political science, and women's and gender studies. And I also work with UN Women. I'm part of their He for She campaign for men who believe in gender equality. And I, as well as Shapa, work with Young Men for Gender Equality. It's nice to see you again, Shapa.
Yes. Yeah.
So thank you, Mohammed, for bringing everyone here together. You all look great. You all sound great. And I'm very excited for the stuff we're going to be talking about today. So this is Women's Steps. Like Mohammed said, we're going to be talking about, you as leaders, what you've done to engage the community, and it will be a great conversation. I know it will. I have some questions on here, but we can also be taking questions in the chat box. I hope this conversation will go very organically. Hopefully it'll flow very well. And just a reminder, as Max said, if you have any problems, hearing or seeing anything, please, anyone just refresh the page and that should work well.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So now that you know a little bit about me, I'm going to ask you each to take a few minutes and, tell us a little bit about you and your story. Tell us, why you do your work, what got you inspired, and, what you're working on now. We can start with Chapa.
I'm Chapa Pereira. I'm 23 years old. I'm a law student at the Faculty of Law, Colombo, in my own country. So I'm a minister of the Sri Lanka Youth Parliament. I'm the minister in charge of the Senate. I was a UN Youth delegate to the 68th UN General Assembly representing Sri Lanka, and I was a member of the International Youth Task Force for the World Conference on Youth. We were the main organizing body behind the World Conference, and I have interned with Ahmad Al Hindawi, the Youth Envoy, for 3 months, to get more exposure regarding the global youth platforms and the mechanisms involved. And I'm also a regional director for the Young Men for Gender Equality platform. So, yeah, in a nutshell.
Awesome. Valentina, if you'd like to go next.
Okay. Well, I'm Valentina Primo. I was born and raised in Cordoba, Argentina, where I studied journalism. And then moved on to Italy to do my master's in peace studies and international cooperation, specializing in human rights. I was very eager to pursue a career in journalism, but it is both in Argentina and Italy. It is very difficult. It is very difficult as a woman, but not only as a woman. It is a difficult career. There, I moved on to Germany, where I interned for the United Nations and started also a parallel path in international development. And then I decided just to drop everything and take the leap and move to the Middle East to look for opportunities. I started working first in social business in a company actually with all women called Bridge Egypt. And then I finally started writing for 2 different projects. One of them is Call of Culture. The other one being Baraka Bits, which spreads good news from the Middle East, sort of a different narrative in the region.
Thank you. Maha, would you like to go?
Well, I'm Maha Jufali. I'm from Saudi Arabia, and I've started an NGO around 29.3 years ago. And it's a privately owned NGO for children and adults with intellectual disabilities. I'm also a strong advocate for the rights of the disabled in the Arab world, and also a strong advocate for artists with disabilities. So I promote artists with disabilities, and I do a lot with families, supporting families, women. We just started women with intellectual disabilities for equality in work. And so employment is a big deal as well. So I'm working with that. And I've dabbled with everything concerning their rights and for perfect living.
Awesome. Thank you, all three of you. Well, this is Call of Culture, so I'm going to ask, is there anything specifically in your culture that influenced you to be doing what you, the work that you're doing now? Did you see a need for something in your culture? Was there something in your culture that inspired you? Let's, add some culture to this and, tell me your story. It's open to whoever wants to go first.
I can go.
Okay. Yeah.
Do I go? I can't see you guys, by the way. So when I first started, disability was an unknown factor, and people were very, very scared of the word disability. So we had to introduce it in a very mild and moderate way for the people and the society to accept them as one of theirs, and not as a charitable organization. So we worked quite hard on moving out from charity and into their equal rights. And even parents, we had to educate them that they had the equal rights like their siblings to work and to be educated, to go to schools, to be integrated into the society, even to go to a mosque. They had the right to do that. And I must say, within 10 years, that is 20 years ago, the culture has started to change. And now I have to admit, we've done leaps of change, and the culture has metamorphosed into an acceptable environment with a bit of, perks here and there. So there are definitely, not everybody's going to accept, but it's education which helped, and just making them understand that disability is just another form of living. Thank you.
Thank you.
Shall I go ahead?
Yes, go ahead.
So actually what prompted me to actually get engaged with a lot of youth activism and also towards gender issues is that because Sri Lanka, in a historic context, we have had a very strong history of women's empowerment, right? We have had queens ruling this country. We produced the first prime minister in the entire world, female prime minister in the entire world. And there was a certain culture of women's empowerment, which was entrenched in the culture itself. But then gradually things have changed. And now we see a small, various levels, problems regarding gender equality are they are rising up. We see and hear discrimination, gender-based violence, street harassment. So these things have actually become a common occurrence, and it's sad to say because we can't even say it's a part of our culture, because this is not what our culture is. So these things have been added like aliens, and it has actually distorted the entire culture of women's empowerment that Sri Lanka has once had. So this is why we engaged, as a youth parliamentarian, as a UN youth delegate, that's why we have been constantly pushing for gender equality to be well represented in the national youth policies and global decision making policies. So we were part of the national youth policy formulation process of Sri Lanka, which actually which to a certain extent recognizes the importance of gender equality and treating young women as priority target groups, and also the Colombo Declaration on Youth, which is produced from the World Conference on Youth, specifically talks about how young men should be catalysts for change when it comes to achieving gender equality. So this is what we have been pushing for, because we strongly believe that the current culture kind of suddenly, you can see in Sri Lanka, we think this should change, and this is what motivated me in the first place to join this discussion.
Valentina?
Can I go on? Well, I think that I've been inspired more by personal examples and specific cases than the culture itself, because what I would say of the three continents I have worked in is that in the three cases I perceive some kind of obstacle to achieve my goals, whether it is social class, whether it is age gap, because in Italy, for example, that's a very big factor. Youth feels they cannot reach to the top, or gender, as here in the Middle East. But even in the Middle East, even in Egypt, there are women that are shockingly inspiring. Personal cases that when you look at them, you say, well, why wouldn't I make it? Why wouldn't we make it as a whole if she's doing what she's doing? Defying all kinds of stereotypes, defying all kinds of be it entrepreneurs, be it, out of the people I've interviewed as journalists, I mean, artists, women that draw cartoons against sexual harassment. There are so many cases that are definitely inspiring. So I think in every culture we find this kind of shining stars, which in some cases are not the exception necessarily,
Yeah. It's a great point. I was doing some research, before this, and I found out, medical needles. There was a woman who created those. Also, car heaters, also created by women. The technology for Wi-Fi and GPS, also created by women. And you can see all these contributions. And look at just the technological advancements. Technology helps to shape and change our culture as well. So I think when you're talking about women in leadership, women, the steps that they're making to engage communities, these, whether it's through entrepreneurship, private sector, charity, government, it's actually shaping culture. And it's quite amazing to actually see. So I just want to thank all of you, again, for being here, because for the people watching, this is inspiring. This is a great thing for people to see. To Valentina's point, this is for all of you. Who, I guess, were there any women that you looked up to specifically who inspired you to do the work that you're doing now? Or what was it about them that was so inspiring? What was it that made you want to just keep pushing and get to where you are today? Yeah, it's open for anyone.
Well, does it have to be a woman?
No. It doesn't have to be a woman. It can be anyone.
Well, for me, it's my father, because I believe that, especially when it comes to empowering a woman, a man plays a huge role, because we cannot achieve that perfect balance. We cannot actually achieve gender equality without having that support, because at the end of the day, the society we live in is comprised of both these genders. So I believe that me as a young girl, I have been able to raise my voice, make sure my concerns and desires are heard, and that I have been able to go from my academics to my other achievements because of that strong push and the encouragement that I got from my father. But I know that this is it's not a common thing in Sri Lanka. We have a lot of fathers who say that girls are only to be seen, not to be heard. So for me, it's my father who has inspired that a girl too should be able to, stand on her own feet and be independent. So for me, it's him.
Awesome. Very touching.
Yeah.
I would say as well, I'm like Chapa. It is my dad, and but it started with my dad and his belief in me for so many years, sending me in the 70s to the US to study on my own. He believed in, in empowering me as equally as he empowered my brothers. And from there, it transferred to my husband. And from there, it transferred to many women across the world, whether they're British, whether they're Americans, whether they're Arabs, whether they're Bedouins. You keep on learning from so many women around the world that each one has a different story and a different experience in life. And that's what inspires me till now in learning and keeping going and just learning from them. That's the inspiration I get from now.
Great, thank you.
Should I go on?
Yeah, go ahead.
I think it is not just one case, but many of the women that have really inspired me are really, really young women that are doing these amazing projects and taking charge of them as if they were the CEO of a company. I met this woman here. She's 22, and she not only works for an NGO already that works for children's education here in Egypt, but she decided, as she was working in a very poor area, in a very poor neighborhood, she decided, as she saw the mothers of those kids that were getting paid really little for what they were doing, they were sewing different galabeyas, and they were making they were tailors, women tailors. And when she saw the conditions in which they were working, she paired it with her passion for fashion, and she decided to set up an online company at 22 years old, an online company to sell these clothes that she designs, and she makes these women produce, giving them a more fair reward for their work. So I found it amazing. I mean, she was already working at an NGO. She was already doing social good, but she decided to take it one more step.
Wow, that's great. That's great. It looks like we have a question from Max. It says, what do you think are the key reasons why many women continue to hold back and not be as ambitious as they could be? Again, an open question, open to the panel.
Well, I think it's not only social constraints in terms of the community and what is expected of them, because I think throughout the cultures, again, in the places where I have lived, the figure of the woman that is bound to stay home and raise their kids, it's nearly everywhere. As far as I can remember, except in Germany, but still there in the parts where used to be communist, the former communist Germany, it's still that way too. So, this figure of the mother, the housewife is still very present, and it's one of the reasons. But I think making it a big issue is part of it, contributes to the problem in a way.
True.
So many women that are fighting this are just dismissing this. Are just not looking at it as a real difference. So I think perhaps that's the key to address the issue.
Chapa or Maha, do you guys have any input on this question?
I actually agree with Valentino, and I also think that it's like right now the saddest part is that women themselves push another woman towards discrimination. Especially we can see that in our culture, it's always a woman who would now say to another woman that these are the customs and these are the social things that we should adhere to. Like, it's always the grandmother. It's like always the mother. It's like always an aunt in our culture who goes to, let's say, a girl who's about to be married and teach her how to be a perfect wife. So like it's like a woman who has already undergone that particular situation, endorsing it further. And like especially in Sri Lankan, like in our culture, in South Asian culture, let me be blunt, like a woman's virginity is considered as precious on the night of the wedding, like on the wedding night. So according to the customs and traditions, after the night is spent, it is the bride, it is the mother-in-law which actually goes and checks the sheets to see whether there is blood. So that's the proof of purity. So what we say is that if a woman in herself is willing to do that, so where are we heading? Yeah.
It's a very interesting point. Very interesting point.
I agree with both Valentina and Chapa. I mean, and Chapa, you made a perfect point. I believe women are sometimes the worst enemies for themselves. You gave a perfect example of women kind of teaching younger women the old methods and how to be obedient and how to be this. So, and as you've seen, it's both Chapa and I had something also very similar. It's our dads. It's a man who sent us out to the world. So it is kind of sad that sometimes women do repress each other.
It's a very interesting point. Very interesting point. We're talking about girls' childhood. My question is: are you the same person that you thought you would be when you were a little girl? Think about what you wanted to be, what you wanted to be doing. Is that the same image or is it different? And if it's different, how is that different? And how is that? Has that affected you at all?
Shall I start?
Go ahead.
Yeah.
I wanted to be a journalist and I wanted to change the world, but I didn't imagine I would be so far away. And I didn't imagine I would dare do the things I dared. I think once you take the first step, it leads you to another step. And it's just taking that first step that changes everything. I think life can really surprise you. And if you're ready to take on the challenges, I mean, yeah, you can get so many different results that you were hoping for. Like in my case, I feel like it completely outgrew my expectations, but it was just that first step.
Great.
Well, yeah, I also don't think, planned where I will be. I think like I had the opportunity like to, see what's coming and, go ahead with it, which I'm glad because I don't think if I stick to any plans, I would be here. So, yeah.
Maha, do you have anything you'd like to add?
I've learned very early on that I can plan till tomorrow morning. I mean, but it doesn't work. So I gave up planning and I just went with the flow. And believe me, I've achieved so much more by just having my feet on the ground, listening to the grassroots and expanding that way. By grassroots, I mean my population of people, and just accommodating and changing my life and my givings to their needs, not the other way. And believe it or not, I wanted to be a vet. But that didn't work out.
Well, we're lucky to have you doing what you are today.
Oh, yeah.
So we have a question from Mohammed. Learning from history, women have been behind global changes. What do you think would spark a change in our current globalization? Is it women? It's a very good question. If I could just say, I mean, even if you look in my country, women were behind men getting behind African American men getting the right to vote. Female feminists in the early 1900s said, we aren't going to accept the right to vote until you give Black men and women the right to vote. And then, you know, my country, our government, which was dominated by white men, gave black men the right to vote so that they didn't have to give women the right to vote. And even, I mean, you look behind the women's rights movement and everywhere we are today. It's a great question, Mohammed. What are your guys' thoughts on it?
I think we should play as a team. Why should we play man and woman? We kind of, women bring men into the world. Mm-hmm. So it's a team. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, definitely agree. I think that the final change we're all hoping for is exactly that one. You know, when we start acting as a team. Mm-hmm. I think that's what where globalization still falls behind.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because the longer we consider this as women's issues, the longer we isolate men from this process. Mm-hmm. They're just going to be asking about men's rights. Mm-hmm. Because at the end of the day, all these problems, all this stereotyping affect men equally. Like if you look at the world suicide rate, I think men has the highest suicide rates because they have this particular stereotype to stick to. So well, it's a win-win situation. So why wait for it?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I mean, that's very true. I mean, look, you have these ideas, man has to be the head of the household. He has to bring home, you know, all the money and make all the major decisions. And that's one of the reasons why men fall into depression. That's one of the reasons why men, you know, will become alcoholics or use drugs to cope with all the unfair expectations that we put on them. When we do have women, you are all perfect examples, who are willing and able to help us out, who are willing and able to do work, to be successful, to, you know, take off this burden that a lot of men think is their duty. And, you know, it's mind-blowing when you think about it. You know, we tell women that they can't, when it would just make life so much easier if we were to treat everyone equally as partners. If we were to give women equal access to healthcare, food, water, shelter, education, pay, it would just make life so much easier. Mm-hmm. So can you give me and everyone here examples of what you each, I mean, one initiative or, you know, multiple of where you're specifically engaged in the community, you know, what you're doing, and, you know, let us know if there's, you know, anything that, you know, someone can, you know, find, you know, via social media or anything, they can find your information. This isn't the end, but, you know, I wanted to give a chance for you guys to talk about specific initiatives that you're working with. Start with Valentina this time, I guess.
Okay, we just today, actually coincidentally, we launched a crowdfunding campaign with Baraka Bits, which is the news website I was mentioning before. It's good news from the Middle East. Now, what we want to do is to expand to hire journalists from remote communities, journalists from the line, from the front lines, to report from their communities and contribute to this different narratives, while at the same time bettering the communities themselves. So the campaign is going to be launched today on Indiegogo. And well, you can find it on Twitter, both Baraka Bits and Facebook. I think it's a really positive initiative because it's both engaging community in producing a different narrative, and at the same time, the impact of that different narratives on a global scale can be very positive as well.
Chapa?
You wanted me, I'm sorry, you want me to mention the initiatives I'm involved in, or?
Yeah, what you're doing to engage your community and create change, or, you know, pursue your...
Okay. Yeah, so basically, especially these days, I'm highly engaged with the Young Men for Gender Equality campaign, which is a global movement which Eric also knows about. So these days we are recruiting ambassadors around the world. Like, we divided it according to the continents, the regions, and then these days we are recruiting ambassadors and then finalizing a particular action plan which we can stick to and, you know, work for, like, from next year onwards. So apart from that, in a local level through the Sri Lanka Youth Parliament, these days we are actually strategizing a few things, but things are a bit hindered due to the presidential elections in Sri Lanka, which is happening next January. So mainly those are the things that I'm engaged with now because I have to finish my degree.
I hear you.
Yeah.
Maha?
The biggest, now I'm in the middle of it, so we're calling it the Firebolts, and it is an interscholastic athletic competitions for people with intellectual disabilities, and so there's friendly competitions, and they win things, and the biggest thing is actually, which is happening in 2 days' time, and it is the third marathon, a 1 kilometer marathon, where mothers, children, adults, there's about 7 races which are happening, and everybody is involved, the whole community, with all the support, like the fire, the Red Crescent is coming, everybody is going to be there, and we're using that as a platform to as an awareness campaign that people with disability do have the right to use the streets as other runners are, and they use the athletic facilities in Saudi, as disability is yet not allowed into the athletic facilities. So we're trying to advocate that as much as possible, and we're using it through just introducing sports and how benign it is and how beautiful it is.
Wow, I think it's amazing that we have 3 people who are at completely different places in life, doing completely different things, but they're all so great. It's great. Just a reminder to everyone who's on here, you can share your email with us. Share all your contact info if you want to stay in contact. I'll ask the panelists before we do end. I'll repeat this again. To share your email and stuff in the chat box so that we can all stay connected. We have a question from Max. What are some of the future projects you are looking to begin working on? We can start with Maha. Maha, could you hear me?
Okay. There's a 101 future projects, but probably the one which comes to mind is actually mainstreaming the children into regular schooling, and that is one very, very long-term change for the whole culture and for the whole educational institution. And it goes from universities all the way down to preschoolers. And it's a big thing, and I'm trying to get parents involved in it. So because they're the true spokespeople for their voices, and as well the children and the adults with disabilities, they become ambassadors, and they go on speeches and talks, and hopefully they'll be invited to many speaker platforms, and they can introduce that they have the right to education as well, equal education as their peers.
Valentina?
Well, we're in campaign that we're launching now. We're hoping to start incorporating this new journalists from remote areas and developing training manuals for them and participating in those trainings. So that's something I'm really looking forward to begin this kind of interaction, because on a personal level, I think that when you train somebody, you learn more or the same as you're teaching. So that's something I really look forward to.
Shapa?
So these days, like in the coming year, we are planning a literature review of the Sri Lankan school textbooks. So because through textbooks, because Sri Lanka has a free education system, everyone gets a free education from 6 years to 18 to 19 years, right? So and all these textbooks are given by the government. So we are planning on a literature review of all these textbooks to take away gender stereotyping, and to recommend ways as to how the school curriculum itself can embrace a holistic view of, gender equality and, true balance. And we thought of starting this project around like February or March, because we need to get the appropriate resources for this. And through the Sri Lanka Youth Parliament and the National Youth Services Council, we are also planning a particular kind of a monthly discussion of women who has come from rural areas by utilizing their skills, and who also has, through balancing all these issues in the society, who has actually been able to come forward. And we are doing this in Sri Lankan languages, so that it's accessible to the average public. And so those are the things that we are planning these days.
I think it's great what you guys are doing, because, if you look at, groups that don't normally have all of the same, aren't always treated equally, whether it's people with disabilities or whether it's women or whether it's people who don't have much money, there are those out there who say, we don't want to be giving them charity. They might think it's pity or it's not what we should be doing. When I think the way that we should be looking at it is, look, we see that you as a human being are not being given all the equal opportunities. And because we respect you as a person, we're going to create this program to help people with disabilities. We're going to create this program, we're going to create this program. Don't have much, because it is, it's a part of being a decent human being, helping those who, through no fault of their own, are allowed to live worse off than other people because of the way that they're born, because of the circumstances that they're born into. And I think that, is a great, sort of philosophical point that you all are speaking to, which is really great. We have a question from Mohammed. What are the secrets for you to make change? Share your recipe. Whoever can start.
In my experience, there are much more people in the world that want to make it a better place than we think. And it's even the closest people you have around you. So the best thing you can do is just come up with any idea in any moment and just involve the people you know. Start by the people that you know and start networking. Involve people. Like, I think that the biggest capital we have is people. And those who want to change the world are much more than we think. So I think it's just, believing you can do it and involving the persons, as much people as you can.
I would add to you is teamwork. Find the strength in every person and utilize it in a team, and work forward as a one unit, one entity, not as individual entity, because one hand can't clap. So we have to work together in teams.
So I would add to that and say good friends, because I've been blessed to have really good friends around me who share the same dream, the same passion to actually work. Like my friends Jayatma, Senel, everyone who has been together with me since the World Conference, since Youth Parliament, we have always stuck together to achieve this common goal. And I think good friends makes good times, right? So it helps a lot.
And family. Let's not forget our families.
Yeah.
Okay. I have another question. What do you think is the most valuable trait that a woman can have who wants to be an entrepreneur, a politician, a leader? What are the values, I guess specifically to women, knowing, that there's this set place in a lot of cultures for them that they can have to help them, get through everything?
I think other than courage, I value courage, especially in a woman. But I think other than courage, I personally admire humble people. I came across people that they have made great things in life, but they they become too arrogant, and that's sort of, it's a way of going backwards, in my view. It's sort of forgetting that we are all human beings, as you said before, Eric. So I think that humility is also a very important value.
Great. Awesome. Shopper, am I have anything?
Eric, I couldn't hear you.
Yeah, sorry.
Did you want me to repeat the question?
Please.
What traits would you say women should have if they want to be, a leader, an entrepreneur, a politician? What are valuable traits that you think they need specifically as women?
Yeah, I think empathy is a very good. I think empathy is a must. Like we should understand. Like we should be able to understand another person, and I believe that women, especially being mothers, being they actually have this skill. But it's just that, especially when you are coming out as a person who's making a social change, as an entrepreneur, that we should actually focus on this skill more, because it's important to understand what another person feels through, because it is possible for us, when we go forward in our life, when we achieve what we want to achieve, to forget that another person might want to do the same. So therefore, I think empathy and understanding really matters a lot.
Do you have any thoughts on it?
Yeah, I would say be open-minded. We're a very diverse culture around the world, so we have to be extremely open-minded and non-judgmental. We tend to judge people by their looks or by what they are or who they represent. And I think the more you learn about other cultures and other people, the better it is. So open-mindedness is my word.
That's a really great one. I wasn't even thinking that's a really great one. So Mohammed writes, women are kind by nature. What do you think men should learn from women to be more caring individuals?
Well, everything.
Yeah. They should giggle more. Look at us. The three of us are giggling here.
Multitasking. Yeah, because I don't know.
Thinking.
What? I'm like,
we can think many ways.
Exactly. I'm like, it's a particular skill of a woman, maybe because what the society has imposed on her. A woman has this capacity to do several things at once. Like I've noticed that in my mother, and I'm sure you have noticed it around those women around you as well. So I think it's a very good trait and in the same time, I've noticed my father not being able to handle one thing at once.
I told you, they should giggle. They should learn to giggle.
Yeah. So I think that's one very important thing, which actually makes their life very easy and also make their tolerance levels increase. So that when it comes to domestic violence, the problem is that men get stressed out more. And stress leads to aggravation and then violence. But women has the ability to actually, balance it out. So I think that's one important thing that they can learn.
I think also they shouldn't be so hard on themselves, because men tend to try to hide their sensitive part and their emotions. And as you said, this creates repression. This creates some kind of frustration that is then geared somewhere. So I think also they shouldn't be so hard on themselves.
Yeah. And they shouldn't be threatened by women. They should lose that women issue.
Yeah.
They're very threatened by women. So
that's a very good one. Max writes, that's very true. Do you think the domestic violence issue is the most critical one women are facing currently?
It's actually I believe in a personal level is one of the most crucial ones in our cultures, because especially as a South Asian I'm speaking, because we are being born and bred in a society which says that whatever happens inside the house should the house family unit, everything that happens in the family, we are very hesitant. So maybe that's why in Western countries, we see people open to counseling, seeking help, but in other countries, that's very, very rare. So because of that, a lot of issues in the domestic sphere, a lot of violent issues actually goes unheard of, because the woman thinks it's a shameful thing to come out and say it. So even if she's going to say it, her mother would say, no, don't do that. So I think that's one of the most crucial issues that we need to address. I'm speaking from the experience in my own culture, so that's what I think.
In Italy,
I'm not very well versed. I don't know. You go ahead, Viola.
Sorry. No, in Italy, it is a very big issue too. In Argentina, it is too. The problem is, just as you said, it's the silent problem. It's sort of a silent epidemic that spreads, because we would say half or 30% of the cases are unheard, and nobody knows, and are completely silenced. Silenced by shame, silenced by the community, silenced by. So it's very difficult to tackle that. I mean, probably education is one of the main forces to combat that.
Yeah.
But it's a very serious issue, and my perception is that it is growing. So.
Yeah, I'm not sure if you guys know, but the statistic is globally 1 out of every 3 women will experience extreme forms of violence. And it doesn't just happen. It doesn't just happen in the physical forms. It actually has to escalate to the physical forms. I mean, you look at most forms of oppression, it starts with language. Shaping them, talking about them like they're less. There are so many words we use to make women, to diminish their self-value. And then when you start talking about someone less, you stop caring about their emotions. You take away their rights. You take away their equality, because it doesn't matter. You see them as less. And then it escalates to physical abuse. And then it escalates to sexual abuse. And even if you do address the domestic violence part, the part that we see, that's not going to take away the parts that we hear. That's not going to take away the images that we see on the TV and the cultural perceptions about where women belong, and those are the parts that lay the foundation that allow the physical and sexual parts to go. So, it's a really big issue. But then 70% of the world's poor are women. It's also economic. It's also political. Women are not equally represented anywhere. I'm sorry. I'm going on a rant. I'm sorry. But I do not have any more questions. If anyone else would like to, submit questions, feel free to. I know we have a few more minutes, but what's great about this is that I think we're able to talk on a very human level during this hour. Talk, not just as women, but people in general. There should be like this line that we never allow someone to fall beneath in terms of their ability to, get healthcare, education, equal access to working opportunities and things. Oh, we do have a question. Why should the society be surprised when women do great things? She is human. What's the surprising thing with that? I like that, Adele. I mean,
as we discussed before, I mean, as long as even though it is an issue, as long as the difference is still being highlighted and reinforced, and we still mark, okay, these women are successful and these people are successful, women, be it women or men. We should not focus so much on that, even though the difference is there. But I think a way to eradicate that difference is, to start speaking about a team, like Maha said.
Yeah. It's like we're not quite at that place where gender doesn't make a difference, but we want to get there, where gender does not matter at all, where you're just treated equally no matter what. It's a good point. Very good point. Well, do any of you have any last comments that you'd like to make? Any inspiring words that you'd like to tell the rest of the audience? Oh, Mohammed, not to mention the next U.S. president is a woman. What do you think the trend for women in the next 5 years is? I mean, Indonesia, correct? Indonesia has a female prime minister, am I correct? And now, yeah, Hillary Clinton will probably be the next president of the U.S. Do you guys see an upward trend for women in the next 5 years?
Yeah, Latin America.
As long as yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Sorry. No, just mentioning, just dropping there that Latin America has seen lots of female presidents in the past decades. So perhaps why not in a political level? Why not?
Yeah.
Did you have anything to add, Maha?
No, she said it.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, if there are no more questions, do any of you have any last words? I mean, I'd like to just thank you so much for doing this. You're all so inspiring. And Maha, I hope to see you. I'll be in Saudi Arabia next month. I'm going to be
great. Give me a call.
Yeah.
We'll bring you over.
Awesome. Any last words from any of you?
No, just thank you so much for the opportunity. And it was a very enriching dialogue. It was a pleasure.
Same. Thank you.
Same, I did do that.
No problem. And again, if you guys would like to share your emails or any contact info, Twitter handles, Facebook, please do in the chat box. Anyone sign up with your emails on the side links. Thank you so much to our panelists. Thank you everyone who came. I hope you enjoyed. This was a great discussion and hopefully we can have more. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.